Hello, everyone, and welcome to the International Queer Film and Art Forum. This is a special interview with Alan Kamish, the star of Glitter and Doom. I'm so excited to have Alan with us, not only because Glitter and Doom is an amazing queer musical with music from the Indigo Girls and is out now in theaters. Go see it. But Alan himself is a very inspirational queer human being who has so much to say. And we had a blast. We laughed, we geeked out, and I know that you're just going to swoon over his British accent. Enjoy the episode. And remember to like, follow, and subscribe as we continue this amazing thing called the International Queer Film and Art Forum. This is Robert Jerome Pagan, and this is our Jerome Pagan Creates.
In a world where every night brings new challenges and new opportunities, there exists a beacon of hope, a sanctuary for the voices that refuse to be silenced. Since the dawn of humanity, storytelling has been our most powerful tool, our most enduring legacy. From the earliest days when our ancestors gathered around the fire, to the present day, where the flicker of the screen has become our modern-day hearth. Storytelling has always been our bridge to connection, to understanding, to change. And in the shadow of oppression, the need for expression burns brightest. From the hidden writings of Oscar Wilde to the bold activism of Marsha P. Johnson, our community has always found a way to make our voices heard. And now, as we stand on the cusp of a new era, we witness the culmination of centuries of struggle and triumph. Queer filmmakers from every corner of the globe have come together to share their stories, their visions, their truth. For in the world of cinema, there are no boundaries, no limitations, only endless possibilities. And as we embark on this journey together, let us celebrate the diversity of our experience, the beauty of our differences. So to all the filmmakers, artists, and dreamers gathered here today, I say, let your voices ring loud and clear. Tell your stories with passion and authenticity. And know that you are not alone. We are here to stand beside you, ready to champion your creativity and celebrate your courage. Welcome to the International Queer Film and Art Forum. Let the festivities begin.
Hi, Alan. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Welcome. We're super excited to have you. I know that last time your movie was in the Merced Queer Film Festival. It was in the middle of the strike, so you weren't
Yeah.
you weren't allowed to talk to me in this way. We talked on Instagram, but you weren't allowed to like promote your movie or anything like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
here we are. The strike is over, and your movie went from like film festival darling to now into the theaters. Like it's now went from small pond to big pond and is now
Big
out there
pond,
to the
yeah.
world. And speaking of pond, you're on the other side of the pond. Right now, you're in Britain, Great Britain.
Yes, I'm in Birmingham in the UK. Yeah, so I don't know if we stole Birmingham from you or if you stole Birmingham from us, but like that's where I am.
I always just say the British stole everything and then we took it back.
I'm not sure how far I'd agree with that, but sure, you believe what you want to believe.
so, we're it's 10 o'clock in the morning here. What time is it over there?
It is 5 p.m. here.
So it's 5 p.m. now when you're watching this in America. So he's actually reporting it at the time that you're seeing it.
Oh,
It
yeah,
is early in the
exactly.
morning.
It's real time. That's how it works. Yeah.
So, Alan, you're a film actor, but like me and like most of my favorite actors, you started in theater, right? In
Yeah.
the stage.
Well, I guess I like to say I started even before that because I was a singer-songwriter through my teens, and acting really didn't come on the scene until I had like moved on from all of that stuff, and I ended up going to university and studied film as a compromise because I didn't want to go at all. And yeah, every other kid in my year group was applying, and so the school was like, you have to at least apply. And so I was like, sure, if I'm going to go and do something, I might as well go and watch movies. So I ended up going and doing it, really enjoyed it. I left and I worked at the BBC for a while as a video editor. And I just got really sick of hot desking. And so one day I was like, do you know what? You've always been a performer. Why don't you go and just see what happens? And so I gave myself a year, and within 3 months, I was, like, say, on the stage, and it kind of snowballed from there. And here we are.
So, state. Well, let's start with singer-songwriter Teen Teen Allen. What was Teen Allen like? Were you like an emo kid? What was your music like?
No, I don't think I was cool enough to be one of the emo kids. It was like I think my music was ahead of its time. We'll say that. I used to I used to feel a lot as a kid, more than your average sort of 14-year-old boy, and I think a lot of my queerness was coming through without me even realizing it. And so I wrote a lot of songs that should really have been about my girlfriend, but were really about my best friend. And so it would have been like, it was a way of me to tell people how I felt about them without having to actually do that out loud. Um, but yeah, it wasn't, well, what was the vibe of it? It was very poppy. It was like, I mean, buried in the depths of the internet, you'll find some demos from back then. But yeah, it was
And now I'm gonna find them, and we're gonna play them after this.
leave meeting, leave meeting.
So it was very, very emotional. So speaking about finding and discovering your queerness, when did that kind of start to happen? Because I was the same way. I did the whole Shakespearean Southampton. Let me write you a love poem about you, but it's really about this girl in the forest that I met. But it's really about a blonde boy. I did that too in high school. But like, when did you start to really discover your queerness?
I can't really pinpoint it exactly. I think I had always been aware of a difference, and I think I just like parked it in the backlot of my brain, and um, it really was kind of through building really strong friendships that I realized that for me, friendship and romance were so intimately connected, and I had labeled it friendship without realizing that the feelings I was having was way more than that. Um, and I guess it really like it wasn't until I left home at 18 that I allowed myself to feel those feelings out loud. Um, and so it was a really freeing experience. I mean, my mum and dad are great. Like they were always great about it. Even better than I imagined that they would be. I think I had this like inbuilt fear that it would be worse than it was, as a lot of people do, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, so it was I met my partner when I was almost 20, and we've been together for 7 years now. So I think that through that relationship I've really learned to embrace my queerness as well, and doing this kind of thing. Like, I mean, we'll talk about this movie, I'm sure, but like a lot of my projects follow that kind of through line of discovery and identity, and it's been able to not only help me through it, but also help audiences through it. And I think that's why I'm drawn to these kind of projects all the time. Yeah.
It's why I met my husband when I was 20, and we've been married for 15 years together, 16 years.
Wow.
I know. You're
Congratulations.
like, wow, he's old. No, I no, we really. I like you, I think I found a lot of who I was through growing together as a relationship, which is funny because when people think of queer or the gay culture, they don't tend to think of someone who's been settled down for 7 years,
No.
years. They think of, oh, you're in your 20s, you must be on a pole go-go dancing somewhere. Like, not brooding.
There's an alternate universe somewhere where I am currently doing that. It's a different. It's I missed that kind of period of my life, and yeah, there are moments where I'm like, oh, was that an integral bit that I kind of skipped over? But I'm really grateful that I approached that part of my identity at a time where I could handle it, and I think I probably missed a lot of um, potential damage and anxiety around that kind of thing because I've been able to process it as an adult rather than as like this scared child still, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, and I grew up in the acting industry and the entertainment industry, which is full of rejection. And then I also came out in eighth grade. So like having both of those things, eighth grade is middle school here in the United States.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I would have been like 12, so
Right, that is early. Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
pretty young, and so like I definitely understand the anxiety and discovering yourself, and then rejection. Just in the queer community, rejection is interesting anyway because some of it is so superficial, and then other of it is just so much about emotional connection that it's a very interesting dynamic, I would say. um
Yeah, definitely.
so very much like the character, and we're going to get into glitter and doom here in a second, but very much like your character who discovers kind of his queerness through writing, I would say, and through, very much in the film you see you're a musician, you're a writer, you're writing your story. Was that easy for you to reflect back on and bring into your work, or?
Yeah, I think there's definitely elements of that in Doom. He he does it for a different reason, I think. For me, like when I was building my idea of him, it's really this kid that never had a childhood and was never sort of allowed to be young, had to grow up very fast. And so for him, I think the writing and the music is a way to let that inner child out in a way that it's been suppressed the whole time. Um, Obviously told through the stunning lyrics of the Indigo Girls who just write so poetically and yet so relatably. Um, but yeah, I think it allows him to express himself in a way that he's not been able to throughout his life. I mean, it's a complex relationship with music as well because his mum is a musician, and his mum is the source in many ways of his trauma. So it's like it is this kind of roller coaster relationship with music that kind of fuels him but also holds him back, which is yeah.
So before we move on to the movie, I always like to, especially when I get a chance to talk to someone from another country, uh, to talk about like the queer atmosphere or the landscape. Now, growing up in Great Britain, how was it like? Because we know Heartstopper. That's America. We know when I grew up, I had Queer as Folk, the British version,
Uh-huh. So
and
did
the
I.
and then the Americans did it, and we did it. Like that was crazy. You know, and then now this generation of gay and queer teens and young adults, they have Heartstopper, which is so drastically different than what I grew up with.
Most wholesome,
Okay, yes, but like,
fluffy. Yeah.
is that the atmosphere, or is that just the wish of what we wish Great
I,
Britain would be? Like I always feel like, do we put you on a pedestal of like you guys are so nice, or is it just so fake?
yeah, I think there is a lot of that. Like, and I mean, I grew up in the north of England, so my experience is going to be very different to somebody who grew up in and around London or the south. But I mean, I didn't know another gay person until I moved away, really. Maybe one that I had sort of encountered from a distance, but it really was like, it's very isolating. And yeah, it took me to move away from where I grew up and the people that I grew up around to be able to realize that there were these different colors of personality and of along the scale of identity, essentially. And it took me a long time to kind of grapple with where I stood on that, because my world had been very black and white, and then suddenly became Technicolor, which was great. But I think the Heartstopper of it all, it's Heartstopper is a wonderful antidote to the narratives that we had to deal with pre Heartstopper and sort of anywhere from the mid 2000s back. And so I think it really does swing the pendulum maybe too far the other way, and that it's very sanitized, and I'm not sure that fully encapsulates actually what the gay experience is like. However, I do think it's necessary, because we need that kind of representation to go against what we've been served our whole lives. So I think it has its place, whether or not it's like a truthful representation, I don't know. But then again, growing up queer today is very different to growing up queer even 7, 8 years ago, when I was finishing sort of education. I mean, actually, make that 10 years. I hadn't realized that until now, but yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is more representative of what happens right now. I don't know. I don't have any like really young gay friends, so you'd have to ask them.
Yeah, I feel that. I understand that, because it's a lot of people when they think of America, they think, oh wow, it must be the fun. Well, not anymore. Not anymore. They used to think, oh wow, that must be the fun place for gay people and people just
Hmm.
have fun. Now they go, am I getting deported if I step into the country? Like, like we have had that intense switch
Yeah,
here in America. But I also think that, like you said, there's a lot of times it's isolating. And like I grew up in a small town, and even though I was 30 minutes away from San Francisco, that 30 minutes was that
a
isolated,
big, yeah,
you know? And so, yeah, the people who grew up closer to San Francisco or closer to London would have had a totally different, less isolating experience than I did growing up. And that's kind of why we did this international queer film festival and made it
yeah,
free and virtual, is so that we could reach those little queer kids in those small towns who don't have someone who is out and proud, or don't have someone who can talk to them. And I agree that Heartstopper has its place, and that we do need that family friendly queer film, because for so long, a queer film has been nudity, drugs, suicide.
exactly. Like, I mean, I don't know whether, but I would have been able to watch Heartstopper with my family if it had come out 15 years ago, and like to have that, that's a win in itself. To be able to just share a queer narrative with the people around you is, something that ugh, it blows your mind really, when you grow up sort of 2 a.m. on the family computer, like a blanket over you, being like, oh, I might watch Queer as Folk tonight.
Yes, for me it was Showtime and my VHS player recording it, and then I would record it, and then I would take it to school, and then I would give it to the other gay kids to watch,
Oh my
and then
God.
we'd bring it home on Friday. They'd give it me on Friday, and then I would record it, and then it would pass around. I
So
was
you were running your very own gay blockbuster from
I
school.
was I was the queer blockbuster of my day. Then I was still a queer film advocate. I didn't even realize that. Even in high school,
Exactly.
I was peddling
Never
the queer.
changed. Never
Yep,
changed.
never changed. My agenda, the queer agenda, has always been there.
Yep.
Apparently, right? So Glitter and Doom. This is a huge production. Not only is it a musical, but it's a film, and it was filmed in like three different countries, or how many different Mexico.
I I mean, I guess I only shot in Mexico. I know that they did some stuff in the US, and then obviously I guess I was doing ADR from here a lot afterwards. So it does feel very international. And of course, everybody involved in the production made it a very international affair. I mean, the majority of the crew were Mexican, but then we had obviously an American writer, director. We had our music producer, Michelle, was also American. Then we had representation from Asia with Ming-Na and Alex, of course, and then Lil Ol Me from the UK. So it really was a cross-continental production, which I think made it more fun. I loved being the only Brit. Like, oh my God, I work with Brits all the time, so it was lovely to just like have a break and like the novelty of my accent, got me through a lot of it. So
Yeah, yeah, Americans and oh, we love the British accent. I worked at a Renaissance fair for 10 years. I ran a Renaissance fair for 10 years, so I pretended to be British. I played Oxford. I played the Earl of Oxford, the
oh,
16th
very
Earl of
nice.
Oxford. Yes. But yeah, anyway, so I got my fairness of pretending to be British that I just it doesn't swoon me as it used to. I think now like that the Spanish or the French or even the Portuguese that I like, oh, okay, interesting. Now that I'm discuss and now that more queer films are coming out from like Brazil and
Oh
other
yeah.
countries, like you're hearing more of those languages in queer film. So Tom, who wrote and directed this film, Glitter and Doom, he was known for doing one of the most famous Shakespearean adaptations of a queer movie that I ever knew, and it was set in a British boarding school. Did you see Where We Were Dream when we were
I
before?
I
Or
watched it prior to us shooting. I watched all of Tom's films because it was just a really good. I think when you work with particularly an indie director, like style can be such a determining factor in like in how they go about their job. So it was really important for me to like get engrossed in what Tom saw, because it's not like a commercial film in the sense that most things most blockbusters you would see, most movie musicals, to be honest. And Tom has a very specific kind of lens when it comes to that. So yeah, I watched everything. But Where the World Mine is such a especially for when it was released, it was very ahead of its time. I think it has stood the test of time, and it still has that really pure sense of like wonder that I think Tom kind of sprinkles in all of his projects. Yeah, that was of his previous films. It's my favorite still, even though it was his first way back when.
that I think that film came out when I was in high school, and because it was one of the first indie game musicals that I had ever seen. And I just remember going, that was when I was enamored by the British accent. And I remember watching this going, oh, it's Shakespeare and they're singing and they're gay. It was like heaven for me. That was I so when Tom entered Glitter and Doom into MQFF, not only was I like fanboying because I was like, wait, one of my favorite, this is like my childhood, and I get to see his new movie. I knew that it was going to be just as magical, but I actually find Glitter and Doom to be more magical in a whole other way because it felt surreal in a real way. Whereas the British schoolboy and that felt almost like gay boy fantasy, where this felt more like queer reality. And
Mm.
through the music and everything, yes, it has the surrealism but it was stronger in a more emotionally connected way. Um, Now your character is Doom, and I would say it's the melancholy character. Well, duh, the name Doom, the melancholy character of Pray Hello. Could you be more on the nose? But like it's the downer character in a
Yeah.
world of like brightness and technicolor, like you were describing, like when you moved from uh the north down and to college and your eyes open to bright and color. That's almost how I feel like Doom is seeing the world with Alex or Glitter introduced into it. How much rehearsing, because you and Alex's chemistry is really well, it comes off really good, but how much rehearsing did you guys have? Because you guys are because he's from the Philippines and
Mm.
he's a pretty big star in the Philippines on his own right.
Yeah. Oh,
and
definitely. Yeah.
then and then you're so like how much rehearsing did you guys have? You have dance numbers, there's like, and then development. How did that look? How did you get into the character?
Yeah, so I will preface this by saying this was an indie movie. It's a big, ambitious film with a lot going on in it, but it was an indie movie, and we had not very much time to get what we needed to get from this whole thing. So, with all the will in the world, we had next to no rehearsal of scenes. We would rehearse them the day we were shooting them, which is, not unusual. But in terms of chemistry, we had a week prior to day one where we'd arrived in Mexico. That was the first time I met Alex. And we basically were going to fittings. We were doing vocal work because there was a lot to do musically. We were going to sing 90% of the film live on set. So it was a lot of preparing to do that. And at the same time, we had to record backups in the studio. So we spent 5 days every afternoon through to the evening of being in the studio. And I mean, Alex was sick one day, I was sick the next. We were having to kind of like, we had literally just arrived in Mexico and we had this crazy week of prep before we had to just dive in. I mean, the dance stuff we shot week 6, which was the final full week, and we rehearsed it on the weekend of week 5. I came from a full day of shooting. We'd been there, I think, 12 hours, and it was basically either I had to go home and learn the dance from a video, or I could go straight to the dance rehearsal and do 3 hours of dance rehearsal. So I ended up going straight to dance rehearsal. So I had this like crazy day that was just, I don't know, like 16, 17 hours long. And that was the dance rehearsal at the end of it, is for the big dance sequence in the club, which we shot like 2 days later. So it's a crazy, crazy, crazy schedule. But it was a lot of fun for being that crazy. Like you don't have a minute to stop and think, am I doing this right? Our chemistry came so naturally because we were just thrown into it. We didn't have to think about it too much. And yeah, I mean, it when you go through that process with somebody who it meant equally as much to us both. For me, it was my first job outside of the UK. It was my first major film job, first feature. And so it was a huge responsibility to take on. And I really was in a very desperate place in my life, career wise, at a turning point where it could have easily very much gone down a path where I gave up, essentially. So it came at really the right time, and I was desperate to prove myself. Similarly for Alex, he'd never worked outside of the Philippines and was desperate to kind of break this international market off the back of a scandal in the Philippines, which was a big deal for him. Weirdly, it wouldn't have been a big deal had it been anywhere but Asia, really, or well, some other countries, obviously. But he's coming from that kind of world. I'm coming from mine, and it really made us both hone in on each and every day and make the most of what we could out of the whole experience. So yeah, it was nice to have like a pal the whole way through.
Have you ever been to Mexico before?
I hadn't, no. It was my first time. I've been to the States a few times for different things, but yeah, never Mexico. My mum was like freaking out when I said we were shooting there because in her mind Mexico was all mobs and I don't know, like the cartel. And then, I mean, I've never felt safer anywhere in my life than in Mexico City. It was just the people are just another level of community and warmth. And yeah, I had the best time.
And it served as a great backdrop for the film because of the colors. Like Mexico City is just such a vibrant and like it has that feel. And then the deserts, they have that beautiful or like the truck scene. Oh, it's
Oh
gorgeous.
my gosh.
Oh, I love that scene. So just beautiful, just gorgeous. The cinematography is gorgeous. Everything's gorgeous. Your performance. So something that you said struck me to my heart. Being a musical theater performer for 20 years on stage, you sang 90% of that live.
Yeah, 90% of what's in the finished film was sung live on set, and we sung everything live. Whether they used 90% of it, the 10 is from studio. But yeah, I mean, some days, some days it was hard. I would be waking up at like, 5 a.m. getting ready to do a whole day of. The hardest part of the whole thing was singing. There's like the mashup of 1, 2, 3 into leads into part of World Falls again, and it is like relentlessly at the top of my register, and it was like 7 a.m. and we were going like, and it was the whole day, so it takes a lot of stamina. I don't think people really like. I think they think, oh, film is a lot more relaxed in terms of a medium than theatre is. Theatre is very immediate, but in this kind of context it's immediate over and over and over and over again until we have everything we need. So yeah, it was a big test on my vocal cords as much as anything else. Because I had done theatre before, I knew I could last, but you do everything once or twice a day if you're having a long day. Whereas here, we had like 5 setups and we do 3 takes of each, and it just layering all of that is a lot to take on, but it made it more connected as well. I think there's a real when you watch it, there's a sense of a connection that you wouldn't have had it been all studio stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's probably why I liked it a little bit even more. It just felt real. It felt more a little bit raw, a little bit more honest, and
Yeah.
that's because you weren't lip syncing. That
We try.
okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So for an indie, and I know we keep on saying indie, but like is it this is on that edge of indie and like major motion on the aspect of everything you guys do and the output that you do is at the quality of a major motion picture. You also have name and talent like major motion pictures.
Oh
And
yeah.
for you coming from, the editing room and stages and shorts to now traveling from a small island to Mexico, how was it now to be in a film? Not alone like acting aside actors who have been doing this for years, won awards, nominated for Emmys, have been in Orange and New Black. Like there's just so much. How was that for you? Because I know I don't get starstruck. I'm the type of person who was at Woodstock reunion concert and I didn't know who Slash was, and my dad was like, "Why are you being so rude to Slash?" I'm like, "What the hell's Slash? I don't know. Like, he's in my way," or So that's like I've never had that, but I think that's because I grew up in the industry. But how is that for you, someone who sat at an editing desk and probably watched some of these actors, come across your desk and see them for years? How was that?
It was different. I think like it takes a lot of delusion to be an actor in many ways. And to be honest, by the time I got there and got in my trailer and got in my little apartment that I was staying in Mexico, the delusion had fully taken over, and there was nothing that could like startle me. I mean, like the worst was when Amy from the Indigo Girls was actually there. I was fine with Missy. Missy and I had like the best day out in Mexico. We were blessed by a shaman. We had this beautiful dinner, and there was this like screaming Halloween thing that kept going off every 5 minutes. It was a magical day. No starstruck at all. She's the most down to earth person. Similarly with Mingna, she's exactly the same. So warm. We had dinner with her. Back in LA, and Leah, I have the same management as Leah now. We just connected instantly. Um, but yeah, something about when Amy stepped on set, it was like, oh my God, this is a film all about your music and you're here. And we were shooting. I tell the story all the time, but we were shooting the club scenes at the end of the film, so where I'm performing on stage, and we were just doing Power of Two, and I'm mid song, and Amy walks into the back of the room, and I clock her, and everything in me's just like, oh my God, this is your song, and you're here finally. And she just said over the top of everyone, I just heard her go, sing for us. And it just melted everything inside of me. And I was like, this is real. Take the moment. Like you're probably not gonna feel this again, so just roll with it. And I ended up. I mean, she's a wonderful person. We had such a good rapport, the three of us, with Alex as well. And interestingly, like she was having to act in the film, which is not something she'd had to do before. So it was like a weird. I think everyone was anxious, but again in the best possible way. And yeah, I mean, people are just people at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if they've been in Orange Is the New Black or won Emmys or whatever it is. As soon as you get someone on that personal level, I think there's always something to connect to. And so I like to kind of go in with that now rather than being like, oh, I'm meeting a Leah Delaria of Orange Is the New Black. I'm meeting Leah Delaria, who is an incredible, unique, and spectacular person just to be around as a person. So yeah, I try to go in with that kind of mindset now, and I haven't had a meltdown yet.
Well, no, because you're still, reeling out the fact that you got an apartment paid for in Mexico, and you're like,
Well,
I have my own
where
trailer.
else?
You see that star? It's mine. That's my star. Like, I get it. I feel it. Like, I totally understand that.
Yeah,
And coming from like for the theater perspective, where I was the same way of going from, what? I finally got my own equity freaking dressing room with my own shower that is mine, and you can't know. Yeah, so like, yeah, I get that. There's totally that delusion that, and it does help you, boost into
yeah.
the into that world. Um, Speaking of theater for a second, what are your top three favorite roles that you've ever played?
That I've ever played. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so I did a show called Lizard Boy, which is a wonderful queer musical again. And I got to play Carey, who is basically a himbo. Like he's just kind of like part surfer dude, part valley girl, and I had like he'd previously been played by a straight man, and it was interesting because we had two casts there at the same time. I was part of the original UK cast, and the American cast were with us, and so watching him do it, I had like a pre-existing fear of like how am I going to put my own spin on this, but then watching Bill play him, I was like, oh, I just need to do completely my version of this, which is going to be so much camper, so much like more inherently queer, and I had just the best time playing with him and just finding the laughs and finding the moments to make him cute and endearing, and I have never got to play another character like that ever. Like I'm usually crying or on the depths of despair, so to just be able to be lighthearted and fun, yeah. So Carey, um I played Eric in My Night with Reg on tour, which is a Kevin Elliott play. He's like the only young character in a group of older gay men, so it was my first play, and I was terrified, and so I got to learn from all of these amazing older queer actors, whilst also just having this gift of a text to play with. So yeah, that, and then what could my third one be? Okay, so I did my first show. Then we'll go with. So I did West Side Story first.
Okay.
I played Snowboy, um, probably because I am this white. But yeah, he was really fun. I got to be the dance captain in that show. I had grown up dancing, and it was something that I had left for a long time. But because of how everything fell in on that show, it was like I became dance captain, and that role I got. It was one of those productions of West Side Story where it was cast to age, so everybody was young enough to actually be the characters that they were playing, which doesn't happen very often. And so I found myself one of the older people in this cast, and so given dance captain, I had all of the jets that we had to work with, and it became such a nice collective because not only were we being taught things and the choreographer was working with us, we were then working together as like a troupe, which is what West Side Story is all about. So yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that as well. So West Side Story, Lizard Boy, and My Night with Reg. There we go.
Wow. I love West Side Story is one of those interesting musicals because I'm Puerto Rican. So like it's like
Oh,
you,
yeah.
you have to like I grew up with it. Like everyone like it's Puerto Rican. But then all of a sudden the movie came out and then I was like, do I like this? Do I not like I don't know. I know that I did West Side Story a lot as a kid and growing up in theater. I mean, I was a brown boy who could dance and did musicals. Like, yeah, it was the newsies of our time, right? Like that was like
That's true. It's very true. Yeah, yeah.
if you could dance, sing, and act, like you had done West Side Story. It's like that in Oklahoma.
Oh, see, Oklahoma isn't as big over here. The revival got really big, but it never had its staying powers like it does now. So yeah.
Well, Oklahoma, I love to watch it and go, Oklahoma. It like it's the most masculine musical in the world, but it always comes off like, is anyone on this stage even close to straight? Like I don't believe cowboys are doing that many hitch kicks. Like I just,
Probably not.
that's a great pirouette. Like I don't know. So like it's always like one of those weird ones for me. And I didn't particularly like the revival. And I think it's because they didn't go
Up
too
for
far.
it.
I wanted
I
to,
mean, it's different. I'll give it that. I love the show. The music is gorgeous, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't see the Broadway revival. I caught it on the West End, and I loved it. But yeah, it's up to you.
so what would be your dream musical? What would be your dream role?
So there's a couple of dream roles. Orpheus in Hadestown is always ever since I first saw it.
That okay, so I will sit here today and say when I watched Glitter and Doom, the first thing I said was, "Man, he would be great. He would be great in that role." And like you would be phenomenal in that role.
Thank you. It very almost happened. Obviously, it just opened in the West End. I won't go into it, but it very almost happened, which was the great loss of 2023. Um, but yeah, I mean, it is one of my dream shows. I just love Anais Mitchell so much, and the score is just to sing that every night would be a gift. I also have okay, I'll have a random pick as well. So there's a show that I love by a guy called Cinco Paul who did Schmigadoon
Mhm.
and the Lorax movie, which I love, and it's called Bubble Boy. It's based off a
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal movie.
Mhm.
Yeah, the musical is amazing, and it's never been in the UK. So if anybody out there would like to produce Bubble Boy in the UK, let me play Jimmy because I've been rehearsing for about 6 years.
Huh. So when you were growing up, what was the musical that inspired you? Like, you guys watch a lot of musicals in Britain. Like the
Yeah.
difference between Britain and America is American kids watch cartoons and like TV. You guys like actually watch cultural stuff on top of that. Like you actually see
Yeah.
Shakespeare and watch musicals. So like, what was the musical growing up?
I used to go to the theatre all the time. I mean, I was enamored with Wicked. I saw the original West End production of Wicked with my school, weirdly. But really, it was movie musicals that really got me into the idea of a musical. I used to love My Fair Lady, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, South Pacific, those kind of like
Yeah.
original musicals, which probably should have been a sign that I was a lot gayer than I thought at the time.
I was just
Uh,
like when you start loving Seven Brides for Seven Brothers for the boys dancing on the
I'll
plank.
tell you what, though, that dance sequence is one of the best dance sequences in any film. It is flawless.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's more amazing live. Like
I've
watching.
never seen I've never seen a live production of it. It's incredibly misogynistic, so I'm not sure that anyone
No,
will be
no one will
putting.
never do it again. Like we'll never see unless we do like Seven Brides or Seven Brothers, and it's like a queer version, and like that.
Seven brothers with seven other
Yeah,
brothers.
it's
Yeah.
like Seven Brothers for my seven brothers. But yeah, but that's a problem with a lot of the older musicals is nowadays they just
Yeah,
won't,
you
they
can't.
won't come back to, like, I love Guys and Dolls. Like was one of my favorite musicals growing up, like just devoured that. Even that today, I think wouldn't really fly very
There
well.
is a great production of it in the West End at the moment. Really good. It's like immersive. Everything happens all around you. They've polished it up a lot, but Marisha Wallace is in it, and she's phenomenal in this. I think Cedric Neal is doing it as well. Yeah, great cast. Really cool production. Yeah.
So what's coming up in your future? What have you worked on? What have you worked on since Glitter and Doom? Or have you been relaxing?
So yeah, so I have my second feature is a production I did with Film 4 called Sky Peels. It's like a sci-fi drama. I play a much smaller supporting role, but it was a wonderful film to be on, and a very different kind of set to Glitter and Doom. So I did that. I also just filmed a guest spot in Doctors, which is a really long running soap over here. It's on its final season, so I'm really proud. It's also very sentimental because it's shot here in Birmingham, and it's one of the only things that is shot here in Birmingham. So it's a bit of a rite of passage, and I'm really glad that I got to do it before the show ended. So that's really exciting. That'll come out next year, this year even. And I have an audiobook out. I did an audiobook called Moth Town by Caroline Hardacre, which I've been selling this audiobook, and I know people don't necessarily go and listen to audiobooks, but it is a great book, and it's a great book to listen to as well. It's eerie and kind of there's a lot of horror elements to it. It's one of the most fun jobs I've ever done. So go listen to Mothtown. And then yeah, so my partner and I are working on a feature of our own. We've been writing it for a little while. And I have a couple of little shorts that we're working on with some friends that I've wanted to do things for a long time. And you finally get a bit of energy about you when this kind of thing happens. And so it's a good time to start amping up the
Capitalize on
creativity
it.
again. Yeah.
It's funny. I was laughing as you said audiobook. My first audiobook just came out.
Yay!
Pagan Scary Stories. It's a book I wrote and I narrated.
Oh,
And
that's
Soundscaped.
amazing.
It's on Audible. Get it to everyone out there. Actually, Pagan Scary Stories is actually what sponsored this interview, so I don't have to do a sponsor thing because there you go. Get it, find it on Audible and Amazon, and get Alan's audiobook. What was it again?
It's called Moth Town. I can't say it because I have like a little bit of a lisp, but it's yeah, it's on Spotify and like Amazon. Oh, it's Audible, isn't it? Yeah. So Audible, Spotify, everywhere. It's actually for free with Spotify Premium if you want to listen to that. So yeah.
Oh, I will listen. If you want to listen to Alan's British accent read you some
Yeah.
stories, go run to listen to that. So a feature with your partner. So I married 16 years with my husband, and we produced everything that so I we produced Last Gas, which is a 4 season television show that we have.
Mhm.
And then all our features we produced and I directed and he produced and I wrote and he told me what was bad and not. So like how is it working with your partner? Because I know how that could be.
I mean, I think I spent a lot of time thinking I was a writer and then never wrote anything. So it's like whereas he is an actual writer, like he's good at dialogue, he's good at scenes, and whereas I'm way more of like a story person. So I think we complement each other in the sense that he can write it and then I can be like, well, here's the big picture and like what we're looking at. So yeah, we're still in very early stages, but we wrote a film together last year, which is kind of, on its way to a second, third draft, and we're just about to start the second one to see if we can capture a bit more grit. I think we're after this year.
Any particular theme that you guys are working on or
I think he would kill me if I was to give anything away right now. So I'll just say,
I'll hold on.
yeah, like intense drama. Let's put it that way.
Okay, well, when you guys are ready and starting to cast, you both have to come on and you have to tell me what it's about and where we're going with that. Because
I will.
I'm always interested in what I personally like when indie artists or actors create their own stuff because it's grittier, it's more daring, it's less American blockbuster. And
Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
I Avengers has its place, but like I don't want everything to be Avengers. Now,
No.
did you listen to the Indigo Girls when you were younger?
I knew Closer to Fine, and I knew their feature on Dear Mr. President by Pink. Um, but apart from that, it was a lot of like, I listened to a lot of their stuff as soon as I realized this project was a thing. Before I'd ever been cast in it, it became like a sort of obsession to me. I would have it on in the car every day, and I was driving a lot at the time because I was doing a play way up north, and so I became very well versed in the Indigo Girls back catalogue, and then I got the role and became even more well versed in their back catalogue. But of course, this movie changes a lot that you think you know about the Indigo Girls.
Yep.
It's not the same music. It's got the same heart and the same poetry in the lyrics, but it's a very different sound. Thanks to Michelle, who has done such a wonderful job of adapting these songs, and Tom and Corey, who of course designed a lot of the mashups as well.
Yeah, no, I grew up listening. I mean, because I was a child of the late '90s, early thousands. I grew up listening to them, and so having hearing them in Barbie and then watching your guys' film, it's been a big year for
Yeah.
their revival and comeback. How was that for you when you found out that Barbie also was on the Indigo train?
Well, I only found out when I watched the trailer for Barbie, and it was just like, oh, that's interesting. What weird timing. And then like, because I think we were still doing ADR at the time, I think. Was it? Or had we gone? No, no, no. We had gone. We were about to go to Toronto, I think, at the time that this had come out, to premiere. And so it was like, wow, what a wonderful like platform for us to be able to kind of like borrow these new Indigo Girls fans, because it's hard to build up like a real fan base
Yeah.
for an indie movie that isn't going to have the same draw as an Avengers film. But Barbie, did a wonderful job of letting people know who the Indigo Girls are, so that they could then become fans of the Indigo Girls, and by proxy become fans of Glitter and Doom, and of course the documentary that's coming out about the Indigo Girls as well, which is another. They really are having a moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting because it kind of catalyzed it, and 2024 is with them now the movie opening in theaters, and I think you guys are playing here in Vegas now soon too. But like,
Probably, yeah. I'm
yeah,
not well versed in where the theaters all are, but yeah, we're all over the states pretty soon.
all over the United States, and I think in Canada too.
I'm gonna say probably, because I don't know for sure. I can. We'll find out. You can put a
Okay,
little.
I'll put a link in and let people know where they can watch it. Um, is there anything that you would want to tell a young queer person sitting home in a small town like you and I grew up in today to inspire them?
Hang in there. Um, Follow your instincts, because they're not wrong. No matter how many people might steer you in different ways. And try not to take it all too seriously. We have a bit of a luxury nowadays of being able to peel back a few layers and be able to find yourself without it needing to cost you so much. So, try and relax as much as you can. That's what I would say.
I love that. I wish I would have heard that because I do not relax. I overwork constantly. I'm constantly
So
working out.
do I.
Oh, we give advice, we just don't take it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much. Everyone, go and follow Alan. Make sure that you get all his socials. Go get his book so that he can now read the complete Shakespeare of the complete works of Shakespeare for us and get an Alan version of that. That would be hilarious. But yeah, thank you so much, and hopefully we can see more of you in our festival and just future. We want to see your films. Hopefully, some of your
Oh,
films in our festival soon.
oh, I'll
Uh,
be back.
yeah, he'll be back. He'll be back. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. So, I'm going to close with a cover of, you know those songs that seem like they were written just for you? Well, here's hoping I do it some justice. No. A certain someone says perfection's an impossibility, so no disclaimers.